My name is Rachel. And 3 months ago, I inherited a small house in Portland from my grandmother. It wasn't just a house. It was her pride. Her story. Her soul stitched into every curtain and pressed into every floorboard. I remember the moment everything shifted. I had just come back from work, set my bag down, and walked outside to breathe in the late summer air. But instead of her blooming mimosa tree by the fence, the one she planted the year I was born, I saw a giant metal fire pit dug into the lawn. Smoke rising from freshly turned soil. The tree was gone. Completely uprooted. My brother Travis stood there, grilling burgers, like he hadn't just erased 30 years of memories. His wife Brittany reclined nearby on a beach chair, scrolling through her phone while the kids ran barefoot across the grass, dragging sticks and pulling up the rest of the flower bed like it was their sandbox. I asked what happened to the tree. Even though I already knew, Travis grinned and said the yard needed an upgrade. Something fun for the kids. Said Grandma would have wanted them to enjoy it. I didn't answer him. I just stared at the scorched earth where the mimosa had stood. The very place where Grandma used to hang bird feeders and teach me the names of every bloom when I was a child. That tree was the backdrop to my entire childhood. And now, it was gone just like her. It wasn't the first thing they'd changed. And I had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be the last. But that day, standing in the smoke and silence, I realized something. I wasn't just watching them destroy a garden. I was watching them take what didn't belong to them. And no one was going to stop them. No one but me. It started with a phone call. Travis's voice was low, almost embarrassed. He told me he and Brittany had hit a rough patch. Something about a failed investment and a business partner who skipped town. They were behind on mortgage payments. And the bank was threatening foreclosure. He said it would only be for a few months. Just until they got back on their feet. Said the kids needed some stability. That they couldn't crash with Brittany's parents again. And then, with that old line I'd heard too many times before, he said, "Your family. What else is family for?" I agreed. Of course I did. Because that's what I was raised to do. To hold the peace. Keep the balance. And make sacrifices. I told them to come. Told them the guest room was theirs. But the next day, they showed up with a moving truck. It wasn't just clothes and baby toys. They brought couches, wall art, a flat-screen television, and crates of kitchenware. Before I could say anything, Travis was hauling boxes through the front door like he owned the place. Brittany marched in behind him, calling out for me to show her where she could unpack the kids' stuff. I stood there, stunned, as if the house had been ripped away from me without a single signature. By dinner, they'd rearranged the living room. My grandmother's rocking chair had been shoved into the basement to make space for a modern recliner that Brittany called more aesthetically current. The kids had already claimed the den as their playroom. Toys scattered across the rug, Grandma had crocheted by hand. I told myself it was temporary. Just a few weeks. I repeated like a prayer. I didn't want to seem ungrateful or petty. After all, they were going through a hard time. But the air in the house changed that night. I felt it in my chest. Tight and pressing. Like I was suddenly the guest in my own home. Something had shifted. And I knew, even if I couldn't say it out loud yet, that letting them in would be the biggest mistake I'd ever make. The red flags came fast. At first, they were small. Brittany replaced Grandma's lace curtains with cheap blackout panels from Walmart. She said the old ones were dusty and depressing. Then she took down the framed cross-stitch samplers Grandma had made and tossed them in a plastic bin labeled "Donate." I asked her if she could at least keep them in storage. She rolled her eyes and said the house needed to feel like theirs too. A week later, I came home to find the entryway repainted a muted gray. My grandmother's cheerful yellow walls were gone. The smell of fresh paint hit me like a warning bell. I hadn't been asked. Not even a heads up. Just a decision made and carried out in silence. When I confronted Travis, he shrugged. Said Brittany was just trying to make the place more livable. Said it was still my house. Technically. But we needed to evolve past sentimentality. That phrase stuck with me. I tried bringing it up to my mom. I told her I felt overwhelmed. Like I was losing control of everything Grandma left me. Her reply came in a single sentence. Don't cause a drama. Rachel, your brother has a family. You're alone. Let them feel at home. It wasn't the first time I'd been told to step aside. I remembered my freshman year of college. I'd gotten a small scholarship and worked part-time to cover the rest. I was proud of myself. I had $4. Zero saved for my second semester when Travis called in a panic. His car had been repossessed. He couldn't get to work. Said he'd pay me back as soon as his tax return hit. I gave him the money. He bought a motorcycle instead. When I brought it up years later, he laughed. Said I had a savior complex. Back then, I thought I was being kind. Now, I saw it for what it was. A pattern. And I had been too afraid to name it. Until now. It happened on a Saturday morning. I came downstairs and found Brittany in the dining room, holding a can of pink spray paint. On the table, wrapped in newspaper, was my grandmother's porcelain vase. The one she'd brought from Austria in the 60s. The one she polished by hand every Easter. I froze. What are you doing? I asked. She smiled like it was obvious. Just giving it a fun pop of color? This place needs some life. Don't worry. I'll seal it with gloss. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just took out my phone and snapped a photo. Later that day, I found my niece, Ava, in the living room with a Sharpie. She was doodling on the back of Grandma's framed wedding photo. Little hearts. A smiley face. When I asked her to stop, she said, Mommy said it's just an old picture and I could draw if I wanted. That night, I opened a new folder on my phone. I named it Evidence. I took pictures of the spray-painted vase, the defaced photo, the pile of framed certificates and letters Brittany had thrown into a storage tub. I took a photo of the spot on the wall where Grandma's portrait used to hang. It had been replaced with a vinyl quote sticker that said, "Family is everything." And yet, everything about this felt like theft. The next morning, I found Grandma's Bible in the garage, covered in cobwebs, sitting in a donation box. That was the moment I stopped hoping they'd change. It wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't carelessness. It was erasure. And I wasn't going to let them erase her. Things got worse when Brittany went online. I saw her live streaming from the house one afternoon, casually walking through rooms that had belonged to Grandma for decades. She called it a fresh start, a new chapter for the family. But her tone was cold, almost mocking. She said I was jealous, that I was the one holding us back. The chat filled with sympathy for her and Travis. People called me selfish and weird. The typical internet mob reaction. I felt crushed, like I was being erased not just from the house, but from reality itself. Then Mr. Powell, Grandma's next-door neighbor of 30 years, showed up at my door. He handed me 2 coffees and said, "Your grandmother made it very clear this house was yours. No one else's. She trusted you to take care of it." His words hit me harder than I expected. I realized I wasn't alone. Grandma had left me the responsibility, not just the keys. That night, I picked up my phone and dialed the number I hadn't used since Grandma passed her lawyer. Mr. Stevenson. It was time to get serious. Mr. Stevenson was calm but firm. He told me the first step was documentation. Photos. Videos. Records of every incident, no matter how small. He explained how courts rely on evidence, not emotions. I started taking pictures of the vandalized vase, the defaced portraits, the renovations done without permission. I recorded Brittany admitting on camera that the kids had free rein to make the house their own. Every social media post she made bragging about the renovations was saved and time-stamped. Travis tried to play the family card again. He told me the house was too big for one person, that Brittany and the kids needed space. He said they were just trying to make it a home, not steal it. But I listened quietly and nodded. Knowing I was already building a case that would stop them for good, I felt a quiet strength growing inside me. The same strength Grandma always had. She once told me, "Roses are delicate, but their thorns mean business." I was ready to show them I wasn't just a delicate rose. The breaking point came faster than I expected. One evening, while scrolling through an online marketplace, I found a listing that made my stomach drop. Grandma's antique silverware, the very set she used every Thanksgiving, was up for sale. The seller Travis's account. I couldn't believe it. How could he sell something so precious without telling me? I called Mr. Stevenson immediately and told him everything. He said this was more than just disrespect, it was theft. Then Brittany did something even worse. She went live on social media, streaming from Grandma's old sewing room. She called it decorating a museum, as if Grandma's memories were nothing but relics to be tossed aside. I gathered every shred of evidence I could find and sent a stern letter through Mr. Stevenson. It was clear I wasn't backing down anymore. We scheduled the property inspection. Phase 1 of the battle had begun. The day the inspectors arrived felt surreal. Travis and Brittany were already tense, pacing around the house, trying to look busy. The inspectors moved through every room with methodical care, snapping photos and taking notes. It didn't take long for them to uncover the truth. The bathroom Travis claimed to have upgraded was a disaster zone. Walls had been knocked down without permits. Mold crept along the ceiling where water had leaked for months. Electrical wiring was haphazard. A fire hazard waiting to happen. Travis started yelling, accusing the inspectors of harassment. Brittany burst into tears, begging for mercy. But I stayed quiet, recording everything on my phone. Mr. Powell came by to watch. He shook his head at the destruction, whispering, "This isn't the home your grandmother left." That day, the damage was clear not just to the house, but to trust, to family. After the inspection, I thought the evidence would finally speak for itself. But Travis wasn't ready to give up. He kept telling anyone who would listen that I was making a mountain out of a molehill, that I was paranoid and jealous. One day, I caught him on tape whispering to Brittany that taking the house would be good for the kids, that I was just in the way. Brittany had started live streaming again, painting me as the bitter sister who refused to share. My mother came by to calm things down, begging me to drop the fight for the sake of family. But I told her I was done being silent. I told her that family didn't mean abandoning the truth. With my phone in hand, I documented everything, the whispered threats, the lies, the live streams. I sent the files straight to Mr. Stevenson. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about standing up for myself and for Grandma's legacy. The mediation room was cold and tense. Travis and Brittany sat across from me, their lawyer between them. Mr. Stevenson pulled up a video on his laptop, Grandma's recorded statement, made just weeks before she passed. Her face was calm, eyes steady. She said she was of sound mind and body, and that the house was to go to me. Rachel. She explained that Travis had proven untrustworthy over the years, and that I was the only one who truly cared for the home. As the video played, I saw Travis's face drain of color. Brittany's lawyer shifted uneasily. My parents sat silently, the weight of the truth sinking in. For the first time in years, I felt the scale tipping in my favor. Grandma had left me not just a house, but a shield. And now, I was ready to wield it. After the video ended, I laid out the options. They could either accept the damage claims, pay restitution, and move out peacefully. Or they could drag this into a court battle that would expose every ugly truth. The room was silent, heavy with tension. Travis finally nodded. Defeated. Brittany cried, calling me a homewrecker. I told them calmly, I wasn't the one destroying family. I was simply done letting them destroy me. It was the hardest thing I'd ever said, but also the most freeing. I felt the weight lift off my shoulders as the mediator nodded and said we could begin drafting the agreement. For the first time in months, I felt in control. This was no longer just about a house. It was about reclaiming my life. Weeks later, I stood in the garden, planting new rose bushes where Grandma's had once flourished. The earth was soft beneath my fingers, the sun warming my back. I was rebuilding not just a garden, but a home. Dad showed up one afternoon, carrying a box. Inside were old photo albums and Grandma's china, things Travis had hidden away. He apologized quietly for enabling the chaos all these years and said he wanted to help make things right. A few days later, my little nephew Arthur came over clutching a broken music box, the one I had found shattered months ago. He said he'd tried to fix it himself. I smiled and told him, sometimes broken things just need a little patience and care. As we planted the last rose together, I realized healing didn't mean forgetting or ignoring the scars. It meant embracing them, learning from them, and choosing to grow stronger. The house was finally feeling like home again. Not perfect, but mine. And that was enough. Sitting in Grandma's favorite chair, I finally had a moment to breathe. The house was quiet now, the echoes of conflict replaced by the soft hum of evening crickets outside. I thought about everything I'd been through, the betrayals, the battles, the moments I almost gave up. This house taught me the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes love means saying no. Saying no to the people who hurt you. No to the expectations that weigh you down. No to the silence that keeps you trapped. I didn't just keep a house. I kept the meaning behind it, the memories, the strength, the legacy Grandma trusted me with. And in doing so, I found something unexpected: peace. I realized that standing firm, setting boundaries, and choosing myself was the kindest form of love I could offer to myself and to those who mattered. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to say no, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of respect for your own worth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.